is our Starlink router. Since we bought the Starlink setup 3 months ago, 4 months ago, we've been meaning to run the line through our boat so that all the wiring comes back here and the router sits sort of midway in our boat. But we decided today would be a good morning to do that, and all we had to do was simply run the line through this way, down this way, through the boat that way. And what made this easy, what made this feel easy was because that is almost the exact route of lines of holes we made when we were running our water lines for our new plumbing system. And so we said, okay, let's just run the wire right by them, except we realized that most of the holes were too big to support an extra wire. So we had to make a few holes, but still kind of a straightforward project. You just run the wire from here to there. We weren't even going to film it because it's straightforward and it's kind of boring. Boat projects are never boring because... And the project is honestly going not that badly, except right here. So the hoses, we were able to use actually some of these holes because they were wide enough. And so the plumbing hoses were going through there and we were able to run the electrical wire right alongside them. The hot water is insulated along the whole way, so it is protecting the wire somewhat. But right here, unfortunately, the hole was just a little too small, so we tried to make it a little bigger, and we nicked the cold water line going to the hot water system. And that's when things got interesting. We had a little bit of water spill, but I have to say, if this was last year, we would have had to turn off the entire water system to the boat because we didn't have a manifold. We had no way of just shutting off one singular line at all. But today, that's what we did. Dave yelped really loud and told me what he thought he'd nicked. I ran over, closed that off, and that's it. We have not lost any more than probably a quarter cup of water. That's it. So it was a very hard project, but I'm very, 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 very glad we did that. But we have finished running the line to the Starlink. We are back online. It looks great, as in you can't tell, which is great, which is the best way to know a project is done. But we have to fix this line, otherwise we will not have any hot water, although today I do not miss any hot water, but we will in a few days miss having hot water. So should be a straightforward fix. There's a piece that got hit by the drill, so that's out. And we go in here. This is the new connector. We unfortunately didn't have just a CTS to CTS connector, but we did have one with a ball valve, so now we have one more spot where we can control flow. But this is all going to be covered up with a shelf, so we don't have to worry about how it looks. There's this Starlink wire, and these are the red hoses that usually have insulation around them, which we'll put back. And then this is our new connector. So, not a bad fix for 15 minutes. Now back to our autopilot issues. If you remember from last week, we removed the rudder sensor wires in order to see if that was giving bad data to our autopilot, causing the issues that we were seeing with our autopilot.
So now that the rudder position sensor is off, we can see that there's nothing here, so it doesn't actually think the rudder's moving in any direction. If we turn the wheel, nothing happens. So now, maybe we can recalibrate it. So let's go back down to Setup, Autopilot, Commissioning, Dockside Wizard, Continue. Okay, you type 1 linear. So right now we are just spinning turtle in a slow circle. You can see our angle, our heading is slowly turning. That's just to let that little bar on the bottom there that says detecting magnetics finish filling up. And once that does, our compass should be fully aligned. All right, 20 minutes later, we've finally finished calibrating. You can see that the little calibration sign is gone from there. So now let's try going onto autopilot. I'm hand steering right now. That's auto. You can see here that it's trying to keep us on 272 and the wind is blowing us off, so it's going a little bit, pulling the wheel a little bit to starboard to do that. All right, let's try making a big turn to the right.
Farmers T yacht club, Farmers T yacht club, sailing vessel in vessel.
And there we go. Slowly making our way, so the heading is slowly going to match the intended course. And let's turn ourselves back. You can see that it's now going to turn us to port.
Yes, up to 17, please.
So it looks like removing the rudder sensor fixed the issue. And even when the rudder sensor was working correctly, I mean, the boat didn't turn or line up any better than it does now, so at least for the next few weeks, maybe we don't need it. In a continuation of the saga of our autopilot, it now works, but thankfully, actually, we found out that issue where the pin that's holding it to our rudder is pretty... it just doesn't look very good. So we're going to replace it with a brand new one, and thankfully, in the boat, we happen to have a spare because some of our friends mentioned that, look, that was the autopilot arm ram can go bad over time, and it's the most common thing that goes wrong, so make sure you have a spare. So we do. Now let's open it up. So this giant box contains, this is our additional ram unit. This is where it would connect to the rudder over here, and this right here is the pin that replaces the one that's inside of the cockpit locker, and this one looks like it's in much better condition than that one there, which looks to actually be sheared off right at that point there. And so looking at the manual, it's actually a relatively straightforward installation. We basically take this pin, this ball right here will go right there between this and this washer. This is what's actually going to hold onto the rudder connection. And that's basically it. We just need to take the old one out, which may be harder than we think, and get this new one in. And hopefully this part here fits through the whole thing. We're going to give that a shot. Okay, so we've taken everything out of the old system. You can see this is where the bolt has sheared off. This is what a brand new system would look like. So that right there was broken off at some point and just kind of left to hang out inside of there, and thankfully in the last 2 years has not, you know, popped out and made us lose autopilot in the middle of a dangerous maneuver. So let's just put them side by side. This is what we just took out of the autopilot. Actually, thankfully this could screw out, so we took it out of the arm and now it's up here. Unfortunately, we can't just reuse this piece directly because this is just stuck. There's a lot of accumulated rust right where this piece of metal meets this ball, and I think over the years it just kind of seized together. We are going to toss some PB Blaster in there and try to get them apart just so we can have this spare piece. But this is what it's supposed to look like. It's supposed to have this bolt here. This is actually connected to the rudder arm. This is what's actually going to the autopilot. You have this piece here that locks it. Well, you have a washer first. That goes here. That locks it into position. That looks like that. And then this bolt, this nut down here will go on the bottom with the washer. And so that's what's actually going to be there, as opposed to this, which was this part here, but sheared off, and thankfully didn't fall out in the last 2 years. But a good thing to get that replaced now. Okay, so this is how it's currently set up. This is, you can see that the bolt does not go through here. And if we just pull on that, like so, there we go. Whole thing comes right off, which is not ideal, not what you want. That was just basically held in there with gravity. So yeah, we're gonna replace all that. All right, there we are with the brand new system installed. So we now have a bolt going all the way through, a nut on the bottom.
Autopilot's fixed, which means it is time to start looking for that window. And this morning we listened to Chris Parker, who is a professional web forecaster for cruisers specifically, and he actually, we asked a question, and he actually said that this weekend is actually a good window to go, which is so much faster.
So he did say it might be a good window. We'll have to wait closer to the time because weather is very unpredictable,
Yes.
but if there is a window, we have to do a lot to get ready. We have to provision, we have to cook, we have to look at all the things that maybe need to be fixed, like our mainsail's having some issues, which we'll talk about some other time. But there's a lot to be done.
Yeah.
And so if there's a window, we might jump. So you may not hear from us for a week, maybe. It's a 5 to 9 day trip, so we may be gone for some time. But
we didn't die. Don't worry. Don't worry. Our family and friends will be able to track us. But we hope we can take this window. We hope we can get ready for this window, and we hope that the window stays a window. There's a lot of things that's very hard to plan a 2-week passage like this, but we'll see. And we're very, very excited, and we hope to take you on every step of the journey with us. But at first, we enjoy the sunset. And just to give you an idea of where we are, we're at a laundromat, and this is the view from the laundromat.
very impressive.
It's not bad at all.
Get a nice, beautiful harbor. I think turtles off in the distance somewhere that way. Yeah.
Somewhere.
So, yes.
Somewhere. But yes, thank you for watching, and we hope to see you soon. A big thank you to our Patreons, Madi and Chris and Justin Fagan.